Willie got the call on a Tuesday, the way he always got it. A brief message from the contractor, a time, a studio number. He showed up at 8 in the evening with his guitar and his charts and found his chair in the section and sat down. Marvin Gaye was already in the booth on the other side of the glass. This was 1965. Willie had been playing sessions at Motown for 3 years. He had been in the room with most of the label's major artists. He understood his role with the precision of someone who has been doing professional work long enough to know that precision is the job. Read the chart, play what it says, stay in time, don't create problems. Willie Briggs had come to Detroit from Memphis in 1961, following the music rather than following the work, which in Memphis in 1961 was a distinction with real consequences. He had grown up playing in church, then in clubs on Beale Street, then in the city band circuit that connected Memphis to Chicago to Detroit through the shared infrastructure of black popular music in the post-war decade. He was 27 when he got his first Motown session call. He understood what it meant. Steady work, good pay, anonymity. He accepted all three. The anonymity was the trade. Session musicians in the Motown system were not credited on records, did not receive royalties on sales, did not appear in the photographs or the press materials. They were infrastructure, essential, invisible, the foundation that the architecture of the music stood on. Willie had made his peace with this before he ever played his first note at Hitsville. Some people built the stage, some people stood on it. He knew which one he was, and he was good enough at it to be called back consistently for 7 years. What he noticed about Marvin Gaye from across the room on that first session in 1965 was the ears. Most artists in the booth were focused on their own performance, on the vocal, on the technical execution, on the emotional delivery. Marvin was listening to everything. He could hear, through the glass, what each instrument was doing, and he responded to the overall texture with an awareness that was more like a producer's than a singer's. On the second take of the first song, he stopped mid-phrase and said through the talkback that the guitar was slightly ahead of the beat on the bridge. Willie checked his chart, checked his timing, played the passage again. Marvin was right. That was the most direct interaction they had in the first 3 years of working together. Willie showed up, played the chart, left. Marvin came in, recorded his vocal, left. The sessions produced music. The music went out under Marvin's name. Willie's name appeared on no record he played on. The What's Going On sessions were different in ways Willie noticed, but could not have described precisely at the time. The atmosphere in the room was different, quieter, more deliberate, longer between takes in ways that were not about imprecision, but about patience. Marvin was building something rather than executing something, and the distinction was audible in how the sessions ran. Willie played what the chart said, but the chart itself was different from previous charts. More space in it, more room for what happened between the notes. He played the passages and thought, this is going to be something. He did not know what. The one conversation happened late in the What's Going On sessions, on a night when the booth had emptied out and Willie was packing up his guitar. Marvin came out to get coffee from the kitchen down the hall and passed through the main room. He stopped. He looked at Willie for a moment and said, "You always play exactly what the chart says." Willie said that was the job. Marvin said, "I know, but some people play what the chart says and you can hear them thinking about something else. You play what the chart says, and it sounds like you mean it." Willie didn't know what to say to that. He thanked him and went back to packing his case. The album came out in May 1971. Willie bought a copy at a store on Woodward Avenue and took it home and put it on. He sat with it all the way through. He recognized his guitar in 3 places, not the parts specifically, but the texture of his own playing, the particular way his right hand moved across the strings that 7 years of sessions had made into something like a signature. The record had his hands in it, and his name on nothing. He knew this was how it worked. He had always known. But sitting in his apartment on Woodward Avenue, listening to a record that had been played on every radio station in Detroit for 2 months, he thought, part of me is in that. Part of me went out into the world, and nobody knows it but me. He thought about that for a while. Then he turned the record over and listened to the second side. He found his playing again, in a guitar figure on track 3 that he remembered recording. A Night in November, a chart that asked for something more open than usual, a part he had played twice and felt the second time was right. It was in there. It was always going to be in there. Willie Briggs played sessions at Motown until 1972. He played on recordings by a dozen major artists, none of whom knew his name. He played on 3 Marvin Gaye albums. He and Marvin Gaye exchanged maybe 20 words in 7 years. Some of those words made it onto the record. The guitar parts, at least. The ones that sounded like he meant them. Because he did.